Welcome to another episode of Everything Intellectual Property. Today, we have a very special guest with us. This person has created a tool that helps artists from beginners all the way up to experts create facial features in their artwork. Please help me welcome the inventor of the face mapper, Julieta Hughes. How is it going, Julieta?
Hey, thank you for having me, David.
No, I'm excited to have you. I know we were talking a little bit offline, and I was saying how typically with like artists, as I look at it as an IP attorney, I kind of look at the different buckets of intellectual property, that being patents, trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets, are typically the top four forms or the main four forms of intellectual property. Typically with the artists, you guys kind of deal in the copyright world of it with your actual paintings and things like that, drawings or whatnot. But you guys typically don't kind of deal as much, I should say, on the patent side of things. But this is cool because you're an artist that has, I would imagine, copyrights, but also obviously what we're going to talk about, the patent on the face mapper today, which is cool, which is very cool. So can you maybe kind of describe the just for the audience who's listening, especially maybe on a podcast, listening to the audio version, can you maybe kind of describe what the product is and kind of what it does for the audience?
Absolutely. The face mapper is an art tool that helps portrait art, especially beginners, on the proper placement of facial proportions. Because if you are listening or you know somebody that is an artist or wants to draw faces, especially realistic looking faces, it's very challenging because the number one problem we all have is how to place proportions properly, which are the eyes, the nose, the mouth, all of that. And here I have one of the units right here. And the way it works, it's actually a very simple, at first, when you look at it, you can't really, but with the moment that I show you a little bit of what it does, like you have this dial in the middle and these arms expand, right? From 5 inches to 10 inches. And I'm going to try to see, because we're going to see a video that is going to exemplify it much, much better. But for example, let's look at this. You see how this kind of aligns with my features?
Yep.
Sort of. The chin, the mouth, the nose, the eyes, obviously my face kind of tilted, my eyebrows, then the hairline and the top of the head. So this is what it does. And it's not, this is not just made for my face. This is actually it can actually be used for any face because there's certain things and guidelines that get repeated in everybody's face.
Yep.
And that is why this is something that can be applicable to, a face looking straight ahead, different positions, profile, no matter the age, so it's a very, very cool tool. And the benefits are that you cut your time in half and you eliminate the guesswork and you have natural results.
And I must say, I have a 6-year-old daughter and she's always asking me to draw different cartoon characters or whatnot that she's watching on like YouTube Kids or whatever, Netflix Kids. And I'm a terrible drawer and I always kind of, like the facial features are always terrible. That's something that I dread, whether it's the nose, whether it's the eyes, eyebrows. So this is interesting. I may have to get one of these so I can use it. Kind of come off as maybe more of an expert drawer in her eyes. Cause I always kind of, like I said, I always butch the facial features of the drawings that she wants me to draw. So this was very interesting. As I was kind of looking at it beforehand, I'm like, this will help me out with kind of drawing different things for, with my daughter. So I guess the question, when you kind of turn the knob, does that, because I know it's a lot of different arms or I'm not sure exactly what you call those, but I know you talked about the ones at the top and the bottom kind of can deploy and retract. Is that are the ones that I guess the pairs, that the 3 pairs in between, are those kind of set in place or do those kind of vary as well? Can you adjust those as well?
That's a very good question. The only one that is static is the middle one. That is the one that corresponds to the eyes because the eyes are exactly in the middle of the face. So that is the only one that stays in place. All the others move. But the secret of this device and what makes it special is that they move keeping the proportion constant. So I can be drawing something that is this small or I can be drawing something that is 10 inches, large, but the proportions remain constant. So they never change. Obviously, like for future versions, I might do a little modification here and there, and all these arms are going to have their own names, so we don't get confused of which one, what is for. But these are the essential 7 axes of the face. If you go really deep, you can divide into a whole bunch more, or if you go too little, it might get a little confusing. But with this, you're really, really good to go for a good foundation.
Nice. So I have to ask, I know you said it was like a eureka moment. What was the inspiration behind it? Because from my understanding, doing a little bit of research, you have been a drawer since you were 3 years old. So and with the the whole discovered 3 years old, I think you were home from school with the chicken pox and kind of found out about drawing and kind of you've been an artist ever since. So what was the inspiration for the actual product? The actual product. How did that come to be?
Well, I have been self-taught my whole life. I never took any classes of art class or anything. And so I like to use books, books that explain the anatomy of, the human face and why things are a certain way, this and that. And this one particular book that I was studying, the author was explaining kind of like in mathematical, not equations, but just so it would actually make sense how the face was divided into certain, or there were certain patterns getting repeated in every single human face, regardless of gender, ethnicity, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, how cool would it be if there was something that had this embedded in it? So we all don't have to just sit and do, okay, so is is this like that? What is the distance between? And that's when I had the eureka moment. That's what led to that moment, me saying, well, maybe this is possible. Maybe it would be possible to come up with something that is not going to require all of us to, get extremely like, I have to spend 3 hours on this. I'm frustrated. This is not working. Because I hear it all the time. People get discouraged. They just quit. They're like, this is not for me. I don't have the talent. I'm like, this can actually make it easier for you and a lot more enjoyable. So.
And I love a couple things that you just said about that. Number one, the fact that a lot of people think that reading is overrated these days, but the fact that you're reading and kind of learning about different patterns of the face and different features, you kind of were able to kind of come up with this device or at least have that eureka moment from you reading, which I think is pretty cool. I guess I was going to ask you because typically I ask, what were you doing before you created the actual your tool, which in this case is the face mapper? But it seems like you've been an artist all the way up until this time. Did you kind of maybe kind of take a break at some point and do other things and kind of did art on the side, or have you already always been like a full-time artist? I guess from the beginning, because typically, at least what I see as a patent attorney, where you have somebody there, maybe in HR or they may be an attorney, or then they're kind of solving for this problem over here that's completely 180 from what they're doing in their day job, and they have that moment, they get a pen, they kind of start a business, and then next thing you know, they go from an attorney or HR rep to the owner of a hair product or something along those lines. But yours is a little bit unusual because you're kind of dealing with something in your actual field in which you kind of was practicing in this whole time. So, and I guess has that always been the case as far as you being an artist from the beginning, or did you go do something else beforehand? How did that all play out?
That's a good question. My whole life, I knew I loved art, my whole life. But I never really, for many, many years, I didn't treat it as anything that I would consider as a job or something that would bring in any type of money because of a lot of reasons. I'm sure a lot of people can relate when I say stuff like, the cliches, starving artist, you're never going to get a real job, go do something else and keep doing art as a hobby, that kind of thing. So I've always drawn my whole life. There were moments that I, took little breaks here and there, when my kids were born, when, certain things or just, life didn't really have much. I didn't really have much time. But about, I think it was 2016 or 17, I started doing portraits, like commission portraits. And that was actually really cool because that's what gave me the first glimpse that you can actually monetize your art. And maybe that, with that, I was like, okay, then I need to continue developing my skill and all of that. And in one of those times, that's when this came up because I already knew that it was possible to monetize your art. And that's how it came to be. But up until that point, it was mainly something that I did just because I love doing it, but not necessarily for another reason.
Huh? No, that's interesting. So I have to ask you this, and this is kind of a sidebar. I was actually doing a video and just creating content the other day and doing a video where it was in Colorado where a gentleman, he created this art piece using AI, entered
Mhm.
into a digital, I think, art fair or whatnot. He won first prize. He got some backlash because he used AI to create the product. And it seems like maybe the art fair rule at that point in time didn't have a rule prohibiting use of AI to kind of create your art, which only makes sense if you're in an art fair and you're kind of submitting images that are kind of created using artificial intelligence AI and not your own skills. It just
Mm.
kind of seemed intuitively, it's like, oh, that doesn't make sense. But so he won. This was like a couple years ago. He won first place. He got the backlash. He didn't apologize, things like that. Now, 2 years later, I think just a couple days ago or earlier this month, he was complaining about his art getting ripped off, or that particular art piece getting ripped off, because again, from a copyright standpoint, you cannot protect images or any artwork that's created using artificial
Mm-mm.
intelligence. So on one end, he was saying, "Hey, I'm not going to say sorry," even though he won first place using AI. But now he's complaining about, not being able, or people stealing his artwork and him having no recourse because, again, he can't protect his art via copyright because it's you can't get a copyright on AI generated images. So with all that being said, how do you kind of use or feel about people using AI and to be kind of artists? And I use that term AI artist very loosely. Does that something that you kind of think about or care about at all?
Well, that's not something that I would personally do. I know there are a lot of people that use it is when you think about it, it is another tool that is out there for people to explore their, to have a creative outlet, if you will. It's very different from doing art with your own hands or anything for that matter. And I actually read the other day the importance of you being the one that creates something with your own hands or your own ability from scratch. And then that's something that is good in a lot of ways, like, mentally, spiritually, like you feel so much better and so much more creative
Like,
that way. But I mean, me personally, is not something that I feel led to do the whole AI thing. Like I much rather do it with the skill that I know that I have developed in my whole life. And that's a very subjective, thing of, how people decide to do their art really. But it's very controversial, that's for sure.
no, yeah, for sure. I definitely would agree with that controversial part. And I guess I probably should have asked this earlier. Can you maybe explain uh, facial portrait? Because I that was a term I kind of didn't know coming into this. And this one of the cool things about doing these interviews is I learned so much. I feel like I've got a like a mini Joe Rogan where I'm kind of taking all this information from different walks of life and kind of learning something. I mean, I'm definitely not maybe an artist by any means, but just being able to learn about different terminology in the art world and different things such as like you said, I didn't know the eyes weren't always in the middle of the face. That's something I didn't know. So can you maybe kind of explain a little bit what like a facial portrait is?
Sure. A facial, and first of all, I would like to say, there are so many different styles of portraits. The one that I do is realistic. The ones that actually looks like a real person. Like not a photograph. I don't like them when they're super hyper realistic because
Sure.
I like them when they have that element of, that's like an artwork, a drawing or something like that. But in a few words, it's like a portrait that is realistic. So that's the thing that I'm focused on and where the face mapper came from. Um, to do a portrait that looks realistic, I have realized throughout the years, especially in the moments that I was starting to lose my mind, because I'm like, why can I not get it? Why does this look off? Like I literally worked on this for the last 5 hours or like 2 days and it still looks off. Like what is going on? And I came to realize as I was mentioning to you, my self-taught books, my reading, my studying, and my own experience that there are certain things that we need to follow, just like the foundation of a building.
Yeah.
If a foundation is not done properly and it's not done the way it's supposed to, the whole foundation will crumble. The whole thing will crumble. The same thing
Exactly.
happens with a portrait. It's no different. That's why people get so frustrated because they work on the shading, for example, but they never really bothered to pay attention to the structure of what they were doing first. So that is the number one thing I can tell you about portrait drawing, especially realistic portrait drawing. Like I said, I can't speak of caricature or other things, although this works for anime as well, and I can tell you more about that later.
Okay.
But that is the main key of portrait drawing when it comes to realistic portraits, the proper proportions, and that's what the face mapper does and facilitates.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I actually kind of love that analogy. So you're saying, hey, because I know about the shading and all that kind of the fancy stuff, but you're saying, hey, this kind of general outline, that's like the structure or the foundation of your portrait, and then all the shading and all that that comes afterwards. But if that kind of structure or that kind of general foundation of the structure of the face, if that's off, then everything else it kind of doesn't matter anyway, or it's going to not look right anyway.
Exactly, exactly. And you have countless examples of people that, they get the proportions excellently and they don't necessarily have to work a lot on shading. And you still look at that portrait and it looks amazing. I mean, it looks natural. It's pleasant to the eye. And you don't really know why, but it's because they got that first thing right first. So the rest of the things, they kind of become accessories. Whereas most people, unfortunately, they focus too much on the shading or what tools, on what this, what that, all the bells and whistles, but they didn't really pay much attention to the structure of the face, and it looks off. No matter what you try to do, once it looks off.
So I like that. So this actually is helping you with the foundation of your drawing, which obviously is going to make everything else look that much more better. I mean, I actually like that explanation of it. So then, and I think this is a good segue because I always tell people, business owners, things like that, IP, going back to the whole foundation thing, is like having your IP protected and done right is like the foundation of your business. If you,
Yes.
is that it typically happens at the beginning, and to the extent that you do it right and kind of build your business on great foundation, then you're going to be good in the long run. However, if you try to skip steps or not protecting the IP, then that can be like building your business on bad foundation. And at some point, it's going to catch up to you. So I guess with all that in mind and kind of transitioning to the whole IP side of things, you talk about the eureka moment and being able to say, okay, I have something here. But then what is your next steps from an intellectual property standpoint, from a patent standpoint? Because no, I'm not sure if you knew about patents beforehand. Is that something that you had to come to learn based on you patenting this product? How did all that kind of play out as you were going through it, I would imagine, for the first time?
Well, I'm telling you, I did not know a thing. Like it's one of those things, if you meet artists, they're going to be like, I would be happy just in my own little hermit place, drawing, making art, and that's it. So I had to, I had to be willing to learn absolutely everything. So did I know about patents? Yes, I did.
Okay.
But as much as like, oh yeah, I knew that the patents are needed when somebody invents something. That's the extent of it. I didn't know how to get one. I didn't know I was involved. I didn't know who to go to, what things were, had to be done. So this has been like a long journey, but just to make it sure, yeah, like through the person that I work with to help engineer this product, he also had some context. And then other people also had some context as far as like attorneys. I started doing my own research, which is very, very important. Not just to get what people tell you, but you also do your own research. The more information you have, the better. And I realized by doing all that how important it was to protect your IP. Before you start telling everyone about it. And I know that can be hard for a lot of people because at first they have they're like, I have the greatest thing ever and I can't wait to tell people and this and that. And I don't want to pay thousands of dollars. I'm just going to do my own thing. I'm going to do my own research. I'm going to file it myself. But you cannot do that. Like you said, it's going to catch up with you. Sooner or later, it will. So it was, to me, very, very important to follow step by step the way it's supposed to. Be patient when I had to be patient. In the meantime, develop this. So it's a multi-step process, but it's extremely important to follow it the way you're supposed to.
Gotcha. So it seems like you're saying that you had it seems like you had some people that you knew that kind of helped you and were able to kind of reach out to some people and tell you, I guess, put you up on game, so to speak, on this whole patent landscape. And it seemed like you also maybe did some additional research on your own to kind of help educate you on as relates to like patents specifically. Is that kind of how that played out?
Yes, yeah, and I actually involved myself in groups where I knew I could get the proper like support or conversations with other inventors and things like that. That's why I got involved with a group of inventors. I can give you more of that information if you want, with someone that is already a successful inventor, and then there were this group of people that were doing the exact same thing I was doing. So I'm like, what better place to get in with? And you learn so much that way. Just like you were saying that you learn so much with the interviews, it's the same thing. But you have to know where to go and always listen, but at the same time, take everything, not with a grain of salt, but, just gather information and do all that, because these are big decisions. When you decide to go, especially knowing that a patent, the application can take a long time, the cost, number one. Yeah.
No, yeah,
So,
but I definitely agree with that. And I don't know. I think that's kind of big as far as what you did, as far as just kind of surrounding yourself with people who had the information that maybe you were looking for, and like you said, just kind of getting information, and then at that point, doing whatever it is that you're going to do with it. I think I was telling you offline the importance, or in terms of the origin of this podcast, as far as just trying to provide information to the audience, and they kind of take that information and do whatever it is that they are going to do with it. I do want to ask you this, because I kind of doing some research and kind of understood that you are Argentinian born. So I guess how maybe does that play a role? And the reason I'm asking that is because it's kind of a two-part question, because the face mapper, this product not only has applicability in here in the US, but the applicability overseas, I would imagine, as artists all over the world. So I guess the first question is, Has that something that you thought about as far as not only protecting this in the US? Because I'm pretty sure you know that the US patent only protect you here. And if you want to go in and sell it in other areas or manufacture it in other countries or regions, you have to protect it there. So I guess the first question is, did you think about protecting this thing outside of the US, or US is going to be my biggest market, so let me just kind of focus on the US?
I will definitely start with the US, and that's something that absolutely crossed my mind. Thankfully, I'm the type of person that I like to go one step, like little steps at a time. And first, I want to get a feel of how it works here in the US market because it's already 100% protected here. I am well aware, though, that with the internet, there are really no boundaries, and people look at things and they're like, "Oh, this works. This is successful. I'm definitely going to, copy it, whatever all that stuff." But unfortunately, one thing that I learned with all this group that I am in, that I have been in for a couple of years and everything, is that there's never a guarantee of anything. You still have to continue and take the proper steps to be as careful as possible. But going back to your question, yeah, my main goal is to go full on here in the U.S. with just to my hope, my vision, my dream is to have it in every in schools, like elementary schools or colleges, for independent artists, things like that. And then from there, after I see what happens and what the response is, to kind of go more in the international route. But we will cross that bridge when we get there.
Gotcha, gotcha. No, that makes sense. I was actually doing an interview of a gentleman a couple months ago, maybe at this point. He has a company, I think it's called Aerofit. But the company was originated in Denmark, and he talked about how just the U.S. always is a big market and where people want to kind of sell their product and things like that. So that's always something that obviously as people outside of the country, they're looking to definitely get it protected in the US because that's going to be a big market from a selling standpoint, even though they're, say, in another country, whether it's Denmark or Poland or whatever the case may be. So I always thought that's interesting to kind of get your take on it and see if, no, I'm not even sure if you look to protect it in your home country, even though the country where you were born, even though I'm not sure how the laws from a patent perspective kind of helps out or protects inventors or not. Actually, with a client of mine, we have some Argentinian inventors. Oh no, I think that was Armenian inventors, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, but yeah, it's always interesting to see how things play out in other countries as far as being able to protect and enforce your patent rights in those countries. So I'm not sure if you kind of even thought about kind of protecting it in your home country or the country that maybe you were born in.
That's a very good point. I hadn't even thought about it, to be honest with you. When the time comes, I would probably consider it. But like you said, at the same time, the U.S. market is the biggest one, is the best one for like commercializing or trying to sell something. And if it's successful here, chances are that success might follow, in other places. And I will probably take a look at that as well. But it was funny when you said Armenian, because that's my heritage. I'm Armenian.
Okay, yeah, I apologize. I'm like Armenia. I think she is Armenian. So I'm sure not got the Argentinian for. Maybe I kind of just butched that what's name. But yeah, I apologize for that. So you're Armenian. So yeah, that's because when I was doing some research and I came across that, I'm like, that's interesting because I had this case where it's with a kind of client, a big company where they have some Armenian inventors, and it kind of just made kind of filing the application a lot more. Had to jump through some hoops and kind of make sure we're kind of doing it the right way because some countries, depending on where you're like residing or a citizen of, it can kind of make things a little bit more interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of going to file, but yeah, no, yeah, I apologize for that. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
No worries. Yeah, because I'm Argentinian born, but with Armenian heritage, and I live here in the U.S. So
Gotcha.
it's a very interesting situation. So that's a thing that I'm very, very, very thankful for. Being here and being able to do this all here was very smooth. I mean, the patience and everything, but at least the process here was smooth considering all the things, that other countries wouldn't have.
Yep. No, I absolutely agree with that. So then I guess what are some of the goals? Because it seems like you have this hybrid approach of a lot of people, at least that I come on, the thing that everyone wants to do is license it, right? We want to license. We don't want to have to kind of deal with manufacturing and all that stuff. But sometimes you kind of have to go that route to kind of prove out the need of the product before you are able to get licensing deals and things like that. Even though I have had a number of people come on or a few people come on and were able to get licensing deals kind of right off the bat just because their product was it seems like it kind of met a need in the market, at least for
Mhm.
some companies that were interested in it. But for you, it seems like you have this hybrid approach of, okay, you're kind of open to licensing, but at the same time, you're kind of manufacturing this thing yourself and selling it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Actually, my main goal is to eventually license it to a company, like I already did some research on possible companies, but there are quite a few, that are, because that's a difference that a confused something we usually get confused with manufacturers versus retailers. So you have to do all your homework as far as like manufacturer, someone that will do your thing, et cetera, et cetera. But I am doing a hybrid approach right now. I have a limited quantity of about, I think 17 more at this moment. I mean, I can have another shipment come in. But my main goal is not to make money out of these units. It's actually to sell them and get the feedback from people that are finally owners of the device, because by using that information, which is very valuable, I'm going to have it with my arsenal, if you will, to then go and continue contacting licensing companies and show them this is why this is a valuable product. This is the feedback of the people that have it so far, of the customers that have it so far. So that's the reason why I decided to do this hybrid approach.
Gotcha. No, and that makes perfect sense. And I actually love what you talked about in terms of the art schools and being able to get into art schools is like a kind of pretty standard thing. And you did kind of talk about getting it into the hands of artists, kind of validate the product. Have you gotten good feedback thus far from being able to get the product in front of or in the hands of artists and them using it and kind of giving you positive feedback?
Actually, I have. All these units that I have that now are going to be for sale, although, there's a little pause so I can find more about what's it called? Liability protection. But that's another thing. But I had about a little over 70 people, 70, that have tested it, all different
Really?
ages, different
Wow.
levels of expertise, whether most of them were beginners. And it was wonderful. I mean, they loved it. And I gave them all, a feedback form as to what they would change, what they would, what they liked the most. And I would say if I could give any advice to any inventor as far as validation goes, having testers is probably a step they cannot miss, because these people will give you feedback or opinions for things you haven't even thought of. That's why I had one of the kids, it was, I think, a fifth grader, that his thing is to draw anime. I don't draw anime, never have. And he was testing it, and I'm like, "Oh, look, did you know that this will help you also with anime? Look at this." And when he showed me, that blew my mind. I was like, "Oh my gosh, there you go, like another market that I didn't even imagine." So and that's how I got this kind of like proof or validation from these testers. And it was very, very positive, very
No,
positive.
and I agree with that 100% in terms of kind of creating that MVP, minimum viable product, and getting it into the hands of people, and just kind of they're going to give you feedback, and now you can take it and kind of continue to, I guess, iterate on the current version of it, but also like you said, find different markets, because if you're using it one way, you may find out from somebody giving you their feedback that hey, you can use it in anime. I think I heard you also talk about the forensics aspect of it,
Oh,
with like law enforcement being able to use it, kind of quickly go through things. I know you talked about cutting that drawing time in half. So being able to kind of quickly do things where time is of the essence, whether you got weather and things like that that you're up against. Yeah, I think that feedback is great and it's necessary. And we were talking about kind of creating something special as it relates to a product.
yes, yes, absolutely. And I think what you just mentioned also touches on the why. Like the reason why you came up with this invention. Is it just to make money? Is it just, most people would think, oh yeah, the main motivation is to make money, right? But the truth is you're not really going to see money coming out of it for years. It's actually quite, the opposite. It's going to be all this investment you're going to have to do just because you have this belief in this product, which I do, because my why includes quite a few things. Like you were mentioning, forensics. I mean, that is probably the number one, or, anything regarding missing people, missing children, something that will speed up the process. And the fact that art is something that I mean, is so good for the mind, for the soul, for relaxing. I mean, there is this new thing. Art therapy is everywhere right now. And
Really?
what is the reason for that? Because art heals. And I heard so many people saying, this is not for me. I can't get this right. I lost my patience. This is too frustrating. And my hopes are like this tool is going to bring people in and actually give them that extra of, like that creativity outlet, in their lives. So that is my why. And that's why I believe in this so much.
No, and I was gonna say I love that, uh, and I'm not sure if you know Eric Thomas. I think he kind of stays between Michigan and I think Arizona, maybe California, if I'm not mistaken. But he's a big like motivational speaker. He does a lot with kind of universities and athletic teams and things like that, businesses as well. But he kind of always talks about what's your why, and I love the fact that you said, hey, if you're doing this for money, then you're probably doing it for the wrong reason. I was actually interviewing a gentleman a couple days ago, early on this week, and he actually sold his company that he created to like $1 billion company. And he talked about, hey, if you're doing this thing because you're trying to make money, then you're probably in it for the wrong reasons. You need to be passionate, trying to solve a problem, trying to get make essentially the world a better place with your product or whatever the service that you're offering. If you're kind of sole reason to kind of make money, then you're probably doing it for the wrong reason. Now the money, like you said, it's probably going to be a byproduct as time goes on and you kind of being passionate and working hard and kind of doing the things that you need to do. But if you're doing it for the money, then it's probably not going to work out too well. So I love that, the fact that you said that, as well as kind of really having that why as more of a reason for kind of getting your product out to the people or your service or whatever it is that you're offering or starting a business with.
Yes, absolutely. And then the other reason is you're going to burn out really, really quickly. Because let's say you get over you get over like the main stages, which are great. You're like, oh, this is going to be the coolest thing since sliced bread. I have the best invention, the best idea. But once you get to a point that you start realizing what's involved, all the work involved, the trial and error, which is really hard because that can be very frustrating, without even mentioning, the research, the money, the patents, the PPA, the this and that, prototypes, all these things. Those are the real tests that will actually be telltale on who is in there for a bigger purpose, or who is there hoping that after a month of doing all of this, they're going to be bought by a company for like $5 million or something. So that is an extremely important lesson. Thankfully, I knew from the beginning that, my purpose was bigger than, let's be honest, we all want to make money, right? Eventually, we all want to make money. But that cannot be the number one motivation, especially in the invention journey, I believe. And I have met so many people, so many other inventors that they gave up really fast because the moment they realized what was involved, they're like, now I'm not so sure,
Yeah. But and again, I think that's not even just with inventors. I think that's anything that you're doing. Obviously, we have a day job, and I guess you may be doing that because you got to pay the bills, keep the lights on. But if you're kind of trying to start a business or go after something that, that's kind of separate from, I guess, the day job, it seems like you kind of better have some type of passion for it because, like you said, that kind of flame of moment of excitement is going to kind of flame out at some point, and now it's going to be okay. How much do you really want it? I get it. I talked earlier about loving doing these interviews because I learned so much from the guests and from kind of the industry that you're in. But a lot of time, I kind of learned a lot about myself in terms of, maybe why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. Because after kind of working 8 hours or whatever the case may be, writing patent applications and kind of going back and forth with the USPTO, and then I try to spend a couple hours every day of kind of creating some type of content. And some days it's like, do I really want to kind of get on camera and kind of talk to the camera? If I'm not doing an interview, then I'm just kind of talking to a camera and hoping that people watch the video. So you're kind of doing that a lot of days, and you're like, okay, why am I doing this to myself? I don't kind of really need to do this, but again, it is for that bigger purpose. What's my why? Trying to get the information as relates to IP out to the people so that they can kind of have a better idea of what this stuff is and make sure that they're protected if they're starting a business or have an idea of inventing something. So yeah, I definitely agree with you on that wholeheartedly. As far as, hey, you're going to tell, I guess, what you're made of and how important this thing is to you once you're kind of going through the journey and that kind of initial excitement kind of burns out. So I definitely understand that. So then let me ask you this. So what are some of the goals? I know you talked about trying to get the face mapper and have it kind of regularly be used. And you also talked about kind of getting into other applications such as forensics, such as maybe anime, and kind of contacting licensing companies for licensing deals. What are maybe some other goals for you and the company with the face mapper that you can kind of share?
Other than those goals, I think those are the bigger ones. Like in the bigger picture, those are the things where I want it to be. But as far as like the immediate goals and the immediate projects would be, to continue contacting these companies, to continue, like doing what needs to be done before I sell the remaining units. Because I'm telling you, one thing for sure in this whole journey is you learn as you go. The moment you feel like you have conquered, a big one, then another one comes in that is also as new and or as scary, or just you're like, oh, how am I going to do this? Well, one step at a time, just and if I look back from the time when the vision started in 2019, and remember we had COVID in the middle, so there was a few months hiatus, everything stopped. And then I continue, because that's another thing. Like you have to pick yourself back up, see where you are, evaluate what worked, what didn't work, and then keep going. So those are like what you meant. Those that you mentioned are my big plans. But like right now, like the tasks in hand are going to be to get more people to buy it, like open the listing and open the sale again, and get their information. In the meantime, continue contacting companies. And let's say once a company license it, then we will see how we move from there. Because I have so many ideas. I have ideas of different versions. I have ideas of like, now, I mean, let's be honest, it doesn't look very sexy, does it? I mean, I want to, like to have like different colors, different patterns, obviously have the names on the arms, doing all different sorts of things. So, but it's important to realize, like, we tend to jump so quickly with the excitement and say, okay, now I'm going to take a deep breath. Yep. Okay, what's next? And what's next? And then once that's done, we're going to go to the next thing.
So let me ask you this, because typically, especially going through kind of your journey up until this point, typically there are some interesting or crazy stories, however you want to look at it. I've talked to people, and whether it's kind of dealing with and this was surprising for me, a lot of people that I've kind of talked to, they've had interesting stories, whether it's with their first patent attorney and maybe that not working out, or maybe with a manufacturer and kind of maybe, something dealing with manufacturing a product that you got from you just not knowing. It was like it kind of made for a great story. Do you have any interesting story? Because again, a part of this is, I want to provide information, not only kind of the good part of as far as the possibilities and kind of protecting the IP and that value, but just kind of also give people, hey, this is not all peaches and cream. There are, like you said, ups and downs through it. And as soon as you feel like you got something figured out, it's another issue, another hurdle that you have to overcome. So do you have any, I guess, interesting stories or maybe hurdles that made for a great story that you can kind of share with us?
Other than like stories individually, I can tell you so many things that I have learned throughout, the entire journey by interacting with all these people, with all the different, because one thing is for sure, this is not something you can do on your own, only on your own. You're going to need people that are specialized in certain areas that you are not, like, because you're the visionary. But, imagine if you're the visionary and the engineer and the patent attorney, and you cannot...
The marketer, all this is like impossible.
Exactly. And what happens is the moment you contact those people, you're going to have a whole new set of things going on. Like they weren't very clear on what they said, or they assumed that they said something when you didn't quite get it. Because this entire time, you're still a beginner. You don't know what you're doing. That's why I will emphasize on educate yourself, Go to reliable sources, learn about the process, read about other people that have been there. There are like, your podcast. There are so many other podcasts that tell, people's journey, and they are amazing. I mean, they're all for free, free resources. But the one thing I can tell you as well, a big one is, that one, inform yourself, educate yourself, be very clear, especially with attorneys. No offense.
I get it. I know attorneys did a bad rep, but you have to make sure you're clear, or else it can be a lot of kind of room for error or interpretation when talking to attorneys.
That's what I'm saying, especially because most of us have no idea what we're doing, unless you're one of those people that, you're in your 25th patent, like at that point, you're an expert too. But me, this was my first one, and there was so much that I didn't know that that can be paralyzing too. And that can, in itself, can scare you from the whole thing and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, what if I do something wrong? But my number one advice for that would be just keep going. Don't stop. Just keep going. These things are going to happen throughout the entire process. Moments that you're not sure of what to do, you're doubting yourself, but just keep going. And then the other second thing that I can say that I have learned is to give ourselves grace for the mistakes we make or the things that we didn't realize or the fact that we're not where we want to be right now. Like, oh my gosh, I should be here and here right now, by now, and I'm not. But the truth is things will happen if you stay at it, if you keep at it, things will happen. And that feeling of when your patent was issued, or like it's amazing. And it was because you never gave up. So as far as like any other stories, I would have to think about it, but nothing in particular that was so bad, just misunderstandings because the communication wasn't clear.
For sure. Yep. And I definitely understand that. And it seems like, I guess, with some of the challenges, that's probably, like you said, the communication not being clear or whatnot. Always kind of like to ask the guests, also, what are maybe some of like one of the biggest breakthroughs that you had, at least up until this point in time, with the product? And it seems like you kind of rattled off a number of things that were exciting, whether it was getting the patent, it seems like getting your actual your product in hand and being able to get it to other people, also getting good feedback, positive feedback from others. What would you say was, at least up until this point in time, as it relates to the business and the product, was one of the bigger breakthroughs that you were like, this, yeah, because you need those breakthroughs, it seems like, to keep going. So what was one of those ones that's like, okay, yeah, this is going to keep me chugging along for a little while longer?
Yeah, there were a lot of breakthroughs. Like this version, this unit, this is the 8th prototype. The 8th. So when we got started, I have I think I have a sample of all of them. Some are like falling apart. Or I just have the drawings too.
It seems like it was probably would have been easier for you to kind of develop the drawings and I guess maybe the prototypes, at least the drawings for the prototype, compared to others, since you are an artist. Was that at least true?
Yeah, that's very, I knew, I was very, very fortunate to work with an engineer that was very perceptive, because I have heard horror stories from other people with their CAD drawers, CAD artists or engineers, that they just would not get it right, and I'm like, thank God, that wasn't my case. However, I knew I knew exactly what the function of the tool would be, had to be, but I wasn't sure what it would look like. So I started out with this drawing that I have to bring. One day, like if we compare them, you'll be like, it's nothing like this. Absolutely nothing like this. It was like this thing that the arms came out of it and they were curved. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking. That was like the first version. And then materializing it was one thing, and then testing it. Because one thing is like having it in your mind. But when you have it in your hands, the idea that first came in your mind, but you're not sure what it looks like, then you have it in your hand, and that's when you realize, oh yeah, this is not going to work like this. We need to go to the next version, and they just kept, one arm fell off. Something was wrong with the mechanism on the inside. I mean, you name it. So the one thing that is the breakthrough of the whole thing is like, okay, don't get discouraged. What happens if you keep going? What happens if you just keep moving forward? Right now, it doesn't feel like nothing will happen. But if you keep moving forward, let's see what happens. So the main idea that comes out of this is bigger things are the result of small things along the way, because you never gave up.
Yep.
That's probably the number one.
And it's almost like if you almost guaranteed to succeed if you don't give up. Now, I'm not saying that everyone is going to go make $1 million, but you're going to have wins and going to be satisfied kind of with the effort that you put in. You're not going to get, especially if you put in everything and then you get to the end, it seems like you're going to be satisfied with, I guess, the outcome at that point, and haven't done, kind of done the started the business and sold the product. If you kind of keep pushing, and so I like definitely that. They just don't give up, and it's going to work out the way it needs to in the end. And I think you're going to be, you're going to be happy and content with the outcome of it. I definitely like that. And then, so I guess the last question that I would ask you is, I guess, how can people kind of get in touch with you? I know, the things I heard is you trying to grow your social media. So, what are maybe some of the ways that people can get into contact with you, whether it's the website, whether it's the social media platforms? Can you maybe kind of talk about those a little bit?
Absolutely. I have a website where I have all my artwork, and I'm working on a page that is going to be specifically dedicated to the face mapper. Within it is www.JulietaHughes, that's my name, art.com. So JulietaHughesArt.com, that's my website. And then you can look me up on Instagram. I have the one for art and one for the face mapper. The face mapper is just face mapper. And then mine is Julieta Julie KH Art for Instagram.
Okay.
And where you can reach me there. The Face Mapper one has a lot of tutorials, videos. I'm also building a YouTube channel, but it's still kind of small for the buyers. So that's where you can reach me.
Okay, nice. So, and I'll definitely, once the video comes out, put all those kind of links or whatnot in the description so people can go check you out with those. Yeah, Lenore, and again, I have a YouTube, and it's growing. I have almost 2,000 subscribers now, and I guess it's starting to make money, which is a cool thing.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just one of those things that you got to kind of keep getting up and kind of taking those swings and like, knowing it's going to pay off at some point. But like you said, not giving up and still understanding the why and all those things. And I think I also like what you said about kind of the North Star. I think that's a cool term to use as relates to having a why and a North Star that's kind of keeping you focused on things. So that's pretty cool. I guess any maybe last party words that you have. I know we kind of talked about a lot, and you gave some great advice to the aspiring entrepreneurs, and kind of talked about the challenges and the successes and a lot of things as relates to the IP or whatnot. Do you have, I guess, any last parting words that you would like to kind of leave us with?
Yes. Yeah. Maybe it's going to be similar to what we said before, but I didn't have anybody funding me for this. Like, this is all stuff, like I started from scratch. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any context. I learned it all myself. But by not giving up and taking step by step by step, no matter how small they are, you will start seeing results. And it's all part of the journey.
Yep.
Like the destination is the journey, not a specific place you need to get to in order to feel fulfilled. So that is those are my parting words. And make sure you have a why.
No, and I like that, and hopefully, audience, you were taking notes because she said a lot of great things. Definitely good things to keep in mind as you're going off into your journey. And yeah, man, I'm definitely. Hopefully, I know she said she had a lot of ideas or whatnot. So I'm excited to have her back, especially once things kind of really get kind of rocking and rolling. And yeah, no, that should be cool. So hopefully, you guys enjoyed this one. Until next time, take care.